Hello, everyone. My name is Shankar, and I will be talking about what's new in Avalara. I am a business systems analyst at Odoo Buffalo, and I'm super excited about the new features. So, to start, I will give a brief tax introduction, talk about why it's so important, especially in the US. I'll talk about why we chose Avalara, and then I'll get into how it works. I'll give a quick demo, and then I'll conclude with pricing and accessibility, if we have time for questions as well. So just to introduce it, in the US, taxes are very complex. We have, 50 different states and many, many different counties. Each county and state has a different policy based on, what type of business you are, what type of product you're selling, et cetera. And it gets very hard to manage. Several businesses struggle when they get audited with going through all of these details and figuring out what they should have done. And so it's a huge risk for these businesses. When you get audited, it takes a lot of time and effort away from doing what you want to do with your business. It also provides a lot of business risk, right? So you're liable to pay that money if you didn't collect it when you should have. So it's super important to talk about. It's super important, especially if you're trying to expand into the US and you're not familiar with the taxing over there. Never too early to start thinking about it. So why did we choose Avalara? Whenever we're introducing a new feature, we have to determine if we're going to build it in-house or partner with an existing company. And I think given the complexity, especially in the US, it made a lot more sense to focus our R&D and other features that you guys have seen throughout the 2 days here. And we know that Avalara is good at it. We know that they're spending a lot of time on it to make sure that it's meeting the needs as taxes change frequently. We also liked its flexibility. There was a few additional options with Avalara. I also think we want to give our customers the chance to make their own choice on how they want to handle taxes. And our goal is to just facilitate that, help in any way we can. And we knew that Avalara would help them do that. The most important feature, I think, is the way that Avalara handles exemptions. So in the US, if you're a certain type of business, you may not have to pay tax on a lot of your purchases. And Avalara provides a super easy way to manage that. You can actually reach out to your customers. They can go into Avalara and upload that certificate right to your portal. So it's, again, minimal maintenance for you guys as a business, but an easy way to ensure that you're only charging tax when you need to. So to talk about how it works, within Odoo, every contact record gets an Avalara code, and we use that code to communicate between the two softwares. So when you set up a customer within Avalara, you can reference that code, and that's how we know which customer we're talking about. On products, within our product categories, we'll have a field that I'll show you that maps to all of the Avalara tax categories that they have. And if your product categories don't exactly match up with the tax categories, that's okay. You can set it up at the product level as well. So I talked a little bit about exemptions. That's something that we allow you to set up both on the Odoo side or the Avalara side. Our recommendation is to handle that through Avalara. Like I mentioned, there's a certificate that your customer has to upload, and it's much more manageable in the Avalara system, but we also know that businesses may need to make exceptions to that rule, so we do offer an ability on an Odoo contact record to set a customer as exempt. Um, we manage it through fiscal positions, so you can set up, only in the U.S. do I want to use the Avalara connection if that's what you require. I'll show you kind of what that looks like in the demo. And then lastly, once the invoice gets posted, we write that data to Avalara. So a lot of states require that once you get over a certain sale threshold, that you're required to collect tax, even if you weren't collecting tax at the beginning of that year. So once the invoice is posted and the transaction is final, we post it to Avalara, and that way you can manage reaching that threshold. So I'm just gonna pull up a database here and kind of talk about what it would take to configure it. So if I go into my settings app, I'm just gonna search for Avalara. There's an option here to enter your account ID. You can generate a license key through Avalara just in your settings. And once you set it up, you can test your connection. I'll show you the address validation feature in a second. And once you've set up all of your exemptions within Avalara, you can sync your parameters, and then Odoo will recognize which of your customers are exempt. If I navigate into the accounting app, we can go into configuration and look at the fiscal position. This is where we have a field to allow you to detect automatically. This makes it super easy. You don't have to worry about whether or not your employees are entering that tax information. We're just gonna collect tax using our Avalara connector without manual intervention. We do offer an ability to set a zip code range, so if your business only wants to use the connection for a certain zip code range, you could obviously do that. The goal is to at some point get to a place where Avalara handles all of your taxes if you're using Avalara. So if I go into the product categories, and I'll just take the all one here. This is where you can set your Avatax category. So once you set this up, any product that's linked to a category, that will also be factored in to the calculation. So I'm gonna go into the contacts app and create a contact. I'm just gonna say test. And I'm gonna put in a address here. This is definitely not the Buffalo office's address. So this validate button right here, super nice when you're setting up contact records. For example, I forgot these 4 digits right here. Avalara reminds me that I need them, and now I can save the validated address. Under your sales and purchase tab, that's where you'll actually see the contact code that you would enter into Avalara if you needed to. And this is where you could set your exemption code if you haven't gotten a chance to set it up in Avalara yet, but you need to get a quote out without tax on there. So I'm just gonna open the sales app here, and I created a exempt customer contact that I set up in Avalara. So when I add a product in here, just so you know, if you don't have that detect automatically button selected, this would be where you would add it if you were on a sale order. So I can hit this compute button, and you'll notice that no taxes were collected here. If I create a new quotation now, for that same test customer, we'll see that taxes were collected for the customer I just created. So in Avalara, the way I've set it up is that I only collect tax in New York, so that's why I chose two New York addresses. Obviously, as you start reaching thresholds in other states, you would set that up in Avalara to make sure that you're collecting taxes in all the states that you should be. So the last thing I want to quickly show you is that on the back side, Avalara is, we actually are creating these tax brackets that are being used in the calculation. So you'll notice the New York State, the New York County taxes for that last example, and you'll also see a couple other ones that were created with no tax. So that's it for my demo. The most important part about this is we're not charging anything at Odoo for using this connector. It's free, it's included as part of your subscription. You can clearly see through my computes that they were very fast and efficient. It's super easy to always know exactly what the tax is that you need to collect. This compute functionality is available across the world. I would say that we probably focused on the US market. So if there's certain intricacies about certain countries and the way that they handle taxes, we would have to see, but within the US it should be fully functional. So I think that was all I had. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.